What's up, everybody? We are live here. I know we're getting plugged in with everybody from channel, and obviously we're coming through Chat 10 Sports on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and even Twitch tonight, Chase. So square it up and deuce it. But man, what do we have lined up? Let's tell everybody what we got going tonight.
Man, we've got a whole slate. A lot of NFL, a lot of Titans talk tonight. We got future GM changes. We've got a new segment, headlines, the future headlines, predictions, if you will. And then we're going to have some fun. We got some hit or miss. Stay locked in. It's going to be a good pod tonight, my friends.
It's going to be a good one. Check it out, guys. Stick with it. What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chat 10 Sports, where we're talking all things Tennessee sports and everything in between. If you're watching us from Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, we do invite you to chat with us live, so make sure and keep that thing live. And if you're listening to us, be sure to follow, subscribe, rate the show, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications. But folks, with that said, without further ado, let's jump into a brand new episode of Chat 10 Sports. What up, everybody? We got some new cool things going on around here. My guy over here, Chase, I don't know who's froth over here is looking better tonight, but I see you, bro. I see
you, Manny. I see you because we coordinated, I guess, in going the same way.
Yeah, I believe we are. I'm always worried because I know sometimes this software we use is I'm looking one way and you're over there, whatever.
Yeah.
But hey, we make it work. But welcome in. We are stoked to be here, but I wanted to give a shout out to our friends at Oreo. Just appreciate you guys, really.
Yeah.
From the bottom. But yeah, we're going to be getting into a lot of Titans conversation tonight. Obviously, we'll discuss some college football topics as well, discuss the passing of Mike Leach, the incredible impact he left, obviously, as a coach, but a lot of things happening with the Vols and going into the Orange Bowl and some people sitting out. I know we have some updates there. And then we'll get into some new segments, as we said, for headlines and hit or miss. But, man, I want to jump in right off the top here. Obviously, the Tennessee Titans got their butts whooped last week by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, Chase, like the Boses do, what did your boy say, man? Don't sleep on the Jags. And I told this to Craig and through Twitters, or the tweeters, if you will. But it's just one of those things. I don't trust this Titans team, enough at all now to go into a Jags game and think, hey, we're in Nashville, we're at home, that +3 or the -3.5, we're good. But Chase, what the hell? What happened?
We let them score. We got up too early. Don't you feel like it was one of those weird things? I was actually talking to Chris, one of our Titans guys, and it's so funny because he was like, "Man, I knew when we got up early that it felt dangerous because you're like, well, 14 might be all that we score."
Yeah,
and it's like, well, shit. And it did have a weird feeling to it this week. I don't know why. I guess like once people start throwing out all the stats of Titans own the Jags, this, that, and the other, and you always feel like no matter what, when people start throwing those stats out, it's like probably should fade the other side.
Yeah.
And Jacksonville, as you mentioned, like they've got this offense. It's like it's young enough where they're going to have ups and downs, and there's going to be good, disciplined teams that can figure them out, and teams that actually cause turnovers, unlike the Titans right now, that are going to be dominant against the Jags. But they ran through the Titans in the second half, and like late first half, early second half, and it's just like, daggum, dude. And there's simple keys to the game, didn't you see? It's like Travis Etienne, stop that guy. It's like,
yeah,
didn't do that. So
cover Ingram, make sure he's.
Who would have thought that freaking Ingram's had 10 catches all year and has 10 against us?
But that's the thing. When he came out, I know he was a first round pick for the Giants, right? I mean, he's moved, but he's gone like most New Yorkers do. They eventually moved down to Florida, but he looked incredible. I mean, as far as speed, I mean, separation, but I don't know if it's the injury bug yet again has struck the Titans, and it's par for the course now. We expect it. And that's the thing about like what will Vrabel do now on our graphic here, just saying like, look, we've got a huge personnel issue as it was on top of injury issues. We're out of GM. Obviously, Ryan Cowden has taken the reins there as the interim, but I don't know how much you can shuffle. And even today, it's the updates of, hey, Traylon Burks is still on IR or still in concussion protocol. But my ears perked up thinking, hey, if he comes back and Zach Cunningham comes back today as well, it's like, okay, like the Chargers, like, what are we really looking at here? It's just a trust issue now.
Big time. Big time. And if there's another team that's as hurt as much as the Titans are, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. So I do think that we are getting a pretty healthy Chargers, unfortunately. But it is so frustrating to watch this team do the same thing over and over. Like nobody, like the general public did not trust the Titans for a long time,
Right.
Due to the lack of pop power, status. Besides Henry, didn't really, like, these guys aren't that good. AJ finally made a name for himself more so last year, having that second big year. But other than that, you're like, these same old Titans. But now Titans fans are going the opposite way because they were the ones like, hey, you got to see this team. And now that the Titans finally get some more notoriety and you're like, well, we're going to go the opposite way because we don't trust this Titans team at all. We're the Titans fans. We're trusting of them for the last 2 or 3 years. Like they can beat anybody. And yeah, they can still Vrabel muck it up. But now it's so ugly that you're like, I don't even want to watch this sometimes.
Dude, that's where I was at. I was like, am I going to turn this game off early or am I going to stick this son of a gun out? And I turned it off early. Like, cause I don't care whenever it's like, look, it's nothing against the talent that they have on the team because it sucks watching Kevin Byard and Jeffrey Simmons and obviously guys who are out like Danico Autry, who knew that he was so valuable to this team in the sense of just the run game. I mean, as far as pass rush as well, I know they were averaging 3 sacks a game with him, and since they've only had 3 sacks, which is mind-boggling. By the way, in case you're watching with us as we talk, I know we're on Twitter here as well. If you're trying to chat with us on Twitter, jump over to YouTube so we can see your comments and we can interact there. But appreciate you, Craig and Gavin, coming in. Going to have a lot of conversation. I see a lot of stuff about the Chargers, so we'll get to that. But I thought Sunday overall, I love seeing the involvement of Chig and even the one-handed, just like mutton chop mitts of that dude of like, golly. The way that he was moving and the way he just grabbed that ball out of thin air and scored that, I'm like, this kid is legitimately talented. And finally, they're getting him more involved. But anything that like stuck out to you, I mean, positives or negatives, and obviously if you're chatting with us too, hit us up there. But what did you see that like stuck out in a negative or a positive of just like the shining light or the silver linings, or just like, dude, we suck here?
Yeah. I'll go back to something I said earlier about the turnover aspect. Like you're not getting turnovers against the Jags.
Yeah.
Like I understand Trevor has gotten way better and the Jacksonville Jaguars have gotten better about like not just making horrendous mistakes all the time. I just felt very young Jags when Trevor was, here last year. You're like, oh, they'll throw at least one pick. I mean, the mayor of Murfreesboro is back there. He's got guys that you would think could cause a turnover. It just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. And Autry's a big part of forcing pressures, getting sacks also. But just the defense is not – I mean, the defense has to have a mentality of we have got to get this offense extra possessions. Have to. And they're not stepping up. And this we've talked about it all year, but this is going to be an ugly first round for this Titans team.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think in the reality of the situation, like I really went to this negative place of just like, this team's awful. I've said, and we'll talk about the whole rebuild versus retool conversation that's happened in the Titans community of where it really is. But I mean, you have to keep in mind, like there are guys that are going to come back on this team from IR, from injury, and the team will get more healthy as time goes on just because they got to sit out. Like they're at the point you just got to sit, and hopefully as this year kind of comes to a close and comes to an end, it'll be one of those things that can kind of get hot at the right time because Vrabel is confident. I'm never going to sleep on the guy, but I don't know how much you can really shuffle the deck. They've had a consistent movement as far as guys coming in off practice squads or whatever it is. I know Kevin Hogan is back, who Sal from Jersey had a great tweet today about how he looked just like a comedian, spot on from Sally. But I mean, I like that they're making the moves. They're not completely folding yet. And there's the big comment that came out from A to Z Sports. I saw it on Instagram of Mike Vrabel talking to Mike Keith. Maybe it was at the Mike Vrabel show of, are you going to make any coaching changes? And just said, no, not in season. And we'll have the evaluations and all that kind of stuff. But here and now, it's like they're not going to abandon ship, which I can appreciate. But I don't want them to be completely so far out of reality of just like, you don't realize what you are.
Yeah. It definitely feels like it's even more stubborn than anything now, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just all stubbornness. Like, that's it. And Amy was not about that life. That's why John's gone. She was like, we have to make moves. And I really think that don't you think it set a tone for what's going to happen in the next 3 months, 2 months, whatever you want to look at. So I'm optimistic as far as that front goes. I was listening to G today on the radio here in Chattanooga, and he was just talking about like it has to make you at least feel a little good if you're a fan because you know your owner's like in it and like not settling for just good. But there's got to be some changes, man, in that coaching staff. There has to be wonders with very lackluster talent around him in some aspects.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about it before as far as Shane Bowen. At one point, people were calling for his head, and this guy replaced Dean Pease, and it was shady and all that kind of stuff. But when the talent is there, and we got to realize there's like 4 starters on this defense that are there.
That's it.
Everybody else is out injured.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, they cut Ola, which is a shock of just like, you are legitimately, well, he was a captain, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year. So just kind of crazy to see. I know he was injured and things like that, but they're not wasting time or trying to waste time in that sense. So all that to say, I mean, I feel they took their lumps. They, you got those game or two, I feel like now for the new Titans, you're going to get your ass kicked a couple times and you're going to go about your business. And Mike Vrabel, I guess, shortest memory on the planet. But yeah, I mean, I'm highly disappointed. And that's the conversation I want to get to for us tonight, as far as, are the Titans entering a full-on rebuild, just given the injuries? And that's kind of where I'm stuck in that rock and the hard place of like, how bad is this team legitimately? Because Dennis Daly, we could spend some time there.
Dude.
Some time there. What you want to say about this? Yeah.
Dude, he has been, I mean, atrocious. Is hard because you're getting to the point now where, we know Radens is not anything to write home about, but it's to the point now where you're thinking there's a reason he was on a Carolina Panthers practice squad, They
gave up a 5th round pick for the dude, bro.
I know.
I'm like,
I know. And that's another part of this front office. There's got to be some changes too. You gave up a 5th round pick for that guy. And then you look at the Ola thing also real quick. I was listening to Buck Rising too. You're talking about you gave away a team that's hurt a lot. You give up an IR spot, which you kind of need those if you're this Titans team. So now you're looking at, oh, wow, we only have 3 of those IR designations left. So now you wasted that just to cut a guy. So you took him off IR just to cut him. So it's like, damn, dude, like you gotta be smart of that. If you're gonna let somebody go, if you have an inkling that you're gonna let them go, don't waste these spots that the Titans clearly need because they have the worst strength conditioning program of all time.
That's kind of retrospective because I mean he was on when John was still GM, right? I mean John Robinson. So I don't know. I feel like Cowden is probably in there just like, well, shit, like you just gotta cut bait on some guys and you make your mistakes. But I mean, I know he's kind of interviewing as he goes for the job or whatnot, but being so close to John Robinson, obviously he was involved with a lot of the decisions. Who knows? Because there's a lot of conversations about it, dude. Like John went rogue and offered him only AJ Brown $16 million after they had given him clearance for 22 and some incentives or whatever it was that would even out 25 or 20, whatever. It's like, it's water under the bridge, but my thought is, and I want to get into some conversation here later about it, but how much is the new GM going to really pull and have and who do we think could be those guys, and if they could go in or they could go outside? But as far as them entering a full rebuild, whomever they would bring in for the GM. I feel they have an opportunity where you could cut a lot of the bait, right? You can cut a lot of the fat. I mean, you have an opportunity, and I know I don't understand this because I think Gavin threw up a comment earlier as far as if Tannehill doesn't get cut at the end of the year, I genuinely think the Titans will lose a lot of fans. Of all the issues on this team right now, I don't think Tannehill is near the top 5. Like as far as positional needs, things like that. I mean, money
as far as
issues.
positional needs, but like as perspective goes, he's a big chunk, man. That's what's weird. I know what you're saying, but as far as perception goes with fans and especially general fans that kind of don't really care about the overall inner workings, they just care about like we know this guy's a problem, get him out. Like,
Yeah,
to be simple about it. But yeah,
but no, and I get that. But I'm kind of baffled by. I don't know. Maybe I'm more of a realist of just saying, hey, here's what we have to address now. And quarterback may or may not be that. Because if they do end up cutting him for financial reasons, I get it. But it also gives you that clean start, that clean, because most new GMs are going to want maybe a new quarterback of their own choosing. Because
John
Robinson never really picked his own quarterback,
True.
He traded for Ryan Tannehill because his quarterback at the time had health issues and still has health issues right now. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of things that could go in. I think the Titans have the ability to cut the fat and reload, kind of a thing. If they can shuffle the deck financially speaking, and I know this is kind of an ongoing thing, but the whole cap, if that's going to move up, and how that number really is just a fluid concept versus a concrete, parameter or whatnot. But all that to say, what are your thoughts as far as you think they're going full rebuild, or you just go ahead and blow it up?
It really depends on who they get as GM.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say if they keep Cowden, I think it kind of stays similar-ish. I think he'll make a move. I think it's like the GM protocol. Like once you get the job, you're like, I have to make one big trade or one big move. Like it's just what NBA, MLB, whatever. Like those dudes come in and like, you know what? Like A-Rod just joined the group for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he's like, you know what? We're trading for Rudy Gobert. We're gonna trade in a dadgum center league that doesn't like centers. Let's do it. Let's do it. So there could be somebody comes in. If you get somebody that's got that's gonna come in with a big old sack, let's call it what it is. There could be a Henry trade. There could be yeah.
You read my mind right there, dude.
If there's a guy that comes in with a lot of sack and wants to just make a overhaul, you can see it. You're going to see a Tannehill cut, a Henry trade. I think you could see a Malik Willis trade.
Damn, are you serious?
Yeah,
that's I get it for the sake of like, hey, this old guy picked you, man. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, like that. But you're not my guy.
Are you also cutting Tannehill in that hypothetical world?
Yeah, and you're just getting somebody else. You're getting 2 other guys.
But Chase, wait a second, man. Like if we're going down that path, put the tinfoil hat on. We're gonna hit that segment sometime. Put on the hat. Are you drafting somebody? Are you just hoping for someone to come through free agency? Because that's a hell of a gamble.
It's a lot of gamble, but you want to just stock up. I think that's going to be, you'll get something out of the Henry trade. You could do something like a package with Malik or something. You could go a lot of routes with that, but you're going to cut Tannehill. You're just going to pick up, there's going to be a couple guys that you could get. I mean, I don't know if he's off wherever. I don't know if he's off the Ravens, but I'm just saying like a Tyler Huntley, you could get somebody of that nature. You can get Heineke, you can get those guys and make do, and you can go full rebuild. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to, it would take a lot of sack. I don't feel like that's going to happen, but if there is a guy that's like, all right, I'm coming in here and making changes.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how it's going to go down. I don't know if Amy wants to do that either. But there could be a scenario where there's a guy that comes in here and is like, hey, we're going full rebuild on this offense. And that's going to be a tough thing with the defense to have much talent as it does.
Oh, that's my thought. Like it feels like Amy Adams Strunk wants to keep this ship as upright as possible versus going full Titanic and going down. That's the power struggle that we could could have had with John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, or we could have with a new GM. And I know here in a minute we'll get to the conversation of who your picks would be for the Titans' new GM. So get your gears rolling on that. But I'm just thinking as far as, and I see our comments rolling, and I appreciate you guys. I know we're going to get active here in a minute, but I want to throw this one up here because LaRon Ingram saying rebuild once the Derrick Henry era ends. Obviously, what we need. And that's the thing. The philosophy changes that a new GM could bring is saying, look, appreciate what you did. And I don't know what you're going to get out of a Henry or a Henry trade, because that cap salary hit for Henry is going to be what, 10 million maybe, roughly. Bow track here in the meantime. But I'm just thinking that I don't know how much leash this new GM is going to have if he is, if he's, hired and Vrabel's got pull in that area. It's like you want stretch. That's where I think stretch, although it's a unrealistic idea, I think they could find a guy just to be not a yes man to Vrabel, but stretch makes more sense to me in some ways, where it's like this dude can push back because they're buddies and they can say, look, dude, you're going to take us right where John was going. And, but I mean, you got to wonder if there was some division in the ranks as far as like the AJ Brown anti-trade camp and the pro trade camp,
It does feel like that, doesn't it? Especially because we all saw the reaction that Vrabel had. So that kind of feels like the first bad tipping point. I don't know if there was I don't remember anything else that was like, those two like kind of disagreed. That was the first time we saw a real reaction. And I was like, ooh, dicey. But I don't know. It just feels like that division was way more Amy and Mike versus John.
Yeah, I feel you. And I'm going to get to the conversation here. As far as who is your pick for the Titans GM, and I'm thinking, I do agree with what was it LaRon said as far as Derrick Henry. The time is now, because you're paying the guy a ton of money, and in some ways it's all cyclical, where you have a lot of money that's tied up in injuries with guys who are on IR with Harold Landry and Lawan, and obviously other people that just are not contributing. So Dylan Cole's out there missing tackles and stuff. But all that to say, in the sense of who they could go with, what direction, my pick over anybody right now, realistically, and you got to think about it. I want to pull from a team in a organization that has been successful. There's a culture that you want to maintain. Let some of that culture come into the Titans, because we are on the up and we're trying to get this stadium thing going. We're trying to be big boy team and host a Super Bowl one day. But this seems like a guy for me that can actually do it and take them there. And it's Rand Carthen of the 49ers. He's the director of player personnel there. He's got years and years of experience from 2013, and now obviously into the position he's in. You got to see what he's done with the draft for the 49ers. Obviously, John Lynch, I think he's incredible.
Yep.
But this guy has been able to watch him work and see his day-to-day and probably just be that guy, just to be right there next to him. And, success, it breeds success in some ways. And then when there's division in the philosophies or whatever, that's where you have problems. So who knows how the relational side works, but he seems like a guy that Vrabel could be like, I know football guy. So does Rand Carthen, but here's my experience and here's my opinion. Who knows? Because the relationship's going to matter a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, is you're coming into a difficult arranged marriage. I think Vrabel's a cool guy, but I also think he is stubborn as hell, dude.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot. Actually, I know this came out. I think Music City Miracles had an article on this too. But Mike Borgonzi from the VP GM over in Kansas City is in an article that Peter Schrager wrote, in a video. I guess he said, "This is the Kansas City Chiefs' secret weapon. This is the guy that does a lot of the scouting. This is the guy that was the stud around Kansas City. And if you want something that comes from a beautiful backbone of a program, it's Kansas City Chiefs right now.
Yeah.
They nail drafts, they find the right guys. Like they nailed it with Trey Smith and all their offensive linemen they've got the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
They just find it, man. obviously with Mahomes. Yeah, they've been incredible, and he is probably the number one guy that I'd want because we have got to find talent in the draft. It's the one thing that Robinson did early to find some good guys. Like he's found some good ones, and when you're batting 65, 70%, it's fine. But then once the Titans got to the pinnacle, he started just swinging for the fences and missing hard.
Yeah, and see, it's funny. I sit sometimes and think of like analogies and things and examples of what happened with John Robinson, and it seemed like he was spinning so many plates. He's like, "Hey, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah,
I'll get this going, and then let's throw AJ Brown out." It's like all of a sudden it all just rushes, and it fell up in his face and it blew up, which I feel like we all anticipated in some ways. So all that to say, I was thinking of a guy from KC too. This is Craig Story on Facebook commenting about a dozen GMs in the NFL should have been fired for passing on Trey Smith 5 to 6 times in the draft. I know a lot of people have been saying Trey's been shoddy at times. I think any player is going to go through growing pains and adjustments. Obviously, the dude's obviously battling a health condition as well. That's still, that's an ongoing thing for him, correct?
Smaller dose, very much smaller dose, but also like he still grades out incredibly well. Yeah, you're gonna have times. I mean, we're fixing to talk about Lawan. You want to talk about times of swinging and missing him. So being shoddy, but
yeah. Well, as far as our GM conversation here, I wanted to transition into a next question here for our audience, and we'll have this discussion here. But if the Titans are selling the farm, who are the untouchables when it comes to trades and cuts? Whether it's I feel like the offseason this year is going to be edge of the seat, pop the popcorn, all the above. But Chase, as far as what you're doing, if you're the GM, who are the untouchables? Because at this point in time, there's probably a handful of them, but I'm sure people have differing, selections, if you will.
How many we want?
3.
All right. Number 1, Jeff Simmons.
One down.
Chig and Traylon Burks.
I wasn't anticipating those two.
I know.
Wow. You're thinking young and you're just thinking protecting. Mm-hmm. Obviously Jeff Simmons is he is a must.
Yeah, he's the must, but like it pains me to say like no Byard, no McCreary. I mean like even guys like I was trying to think of the secondary, like there's potential. But nobody on the offensive line. Oh yeah, I missed on. You know what? Sorry, Chig, you're going out. Give me Harold Landry.
Yeah, I want to throw Gavin Jones on Facebook saying untouchables.
Thanks, Gavin.
Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, David Long, and Christian Fulton. If I were to keep 3 of those guys, Fulton would be out for me because, well, I don't know, dude. David Long might get the boot on that one. That one's a hard one. I feel like that's the 3: a cornerback, a defensive lineman, and an edge rusher for a defense, which Vrabel's going to have his don't even think about it group, all that to say. But yeah, I don't know. So you had Simmons, Chig, and Traylon Burks.
Yeah, but I'm gonna. Sorry, Chig, you're getting the boot. I'm gonna keep Landry.
Gotcha. Okay.
I want youth, but I need a pass. I need an edge rusher too.
I'm just surprised because Kevin Byard. I thought Kevin Byard could be in there. I know for some people he probably is, but how much is he getting exposed because of bad DBs and cornerbacks and things like that, and just bad overall play on the defensive side? But
Big Chill.
Yeah, Big Chill coming through on Facebook. Evan Meadows saying Simmons, Kevin Byard, the entire rookie class.
You know what sucks is we were talking about this too. Yeah, I guess it was you and I were talking about what if this rookie class is so good and it's John's like last walk off and it's gonna wind up just being a stud class.
But it's always that
yeah. Appreciate you on the way out, big dog.
Yeah.
We're still paying you for all 4 of these years.
Hey, if they pan out, that's money well spent, in my opinion, as far as just being like, hey, let's go up from here, because obviously John Robinson's problem was a consistency issue. And I think a lot of people want everything to make sense and all that, every player to be the best player in the world because we're all Homer Titans fans. And it's just like, it's not how the business worked for a general manager. But in my opinion, yeah, Jeff Simmons, number 1, untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. because I feel like the rookie class, or even if they're 2 years or younger, let's say,
Yeah.
I would keep all those, dude, just for the sake of that. But if I'm trading, here's I would ship really anybody I could get value out of, except for like key pieces, like you're saying, Harold, Fulton, and like what did we say earlier in Landry. Those are musts for me because that's the risk again. Like how much controller is this guy gonna have, and how much pull? And it's like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because Gavin makes a good point. Is like you could get a lot for Byard. Like Byard's one of those things. Like if the Titans start to suck, he's not going to stay around. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so he's gonna be out. So you got to start thinking assets. And Kevin Byard's a good asset. Like a good team is really going to want a Kevin Byard. And granted, I know we're saying this with a winning record, and we're going to make the playoffs. But still, it's just like you can watch this team, and they played the two best teams or two of the three best teams in the NFL and got blown out by 20 plus points on both sides. And then, you had your one Titans game where you muck it up against the Chiefs, still lost.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you played the three best and you lost by, an average of 17, I guess, 16, whatever that'd
Yeah.
be.
And see, with Kevin Byard, and this is my like thinking of how the team has been run and how the culture has been. Like they reward, the good performances. They've extended guys. I know they will be the first people to ship you out for a 7th-round pick if he costs too much money, kind of thing with Jarrell Casey. But all that to say, how much does the culture change with the GM versus just that's what the Titans are,
Yeah.
and they keep a guy like Kevin Byard for the remainder of his career, and I mean he's everything you want in a safety. Which I think
he's
I think
absolutely somebody I want to keep, and I'm just saying I don't know if he'd be my 3 because he ain't staying around anymore. If
yeah,
they start to suck.
yeah, that's true, and that's the scary thing too. Like if they go full rebuild and Jeffrey Simmons is stuck on this team, it's like that Saquon Barkley. We just watched him like finally have a good year, and even was it Quentin Nelson and up in Indianapolis? It's like, oh, you hate to see those guys just like rot out there in the desert.
Yeah, who is the Cleveland Browns offensive lineman? It's
Joe
he's
Thomas.
Yeah, dude. He's
Yeah.
like shredded. You're like, good for him. Good for him having a good career after having some fame. You needed that, big dog. You needed that. Get on those like warrior shows and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I want to throw this hypothetical out too because today on Bussin' with the Boys put out a new episode, Delaney Walker Part 2, which was
I can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard some snippets of it, and I heard this one part because it was pertinent to Taylor Lewan. Now, Lewan said on the podcast, just for the context of everybody listening, watching, that if he feels good enough to go next year and his rehab goes better with this operation and this process versus the prior one, then we can go to the table and have a conversation to say he's expecting some type of pay cut. Obviously, and that's the thing I was appreciative of. I was like, I'm realistic here. Like I'm not head in the clouds. Like how could they do this to me? It's like, no, I get it. I've had 2 ACL tears in 3 years. It's like that's just brutal, But at the same time, I'm just curious to know what everybody thinks about this because I threw it up on Twitter and said, if the Titans ask Lewan for a pay cut, what should that number be that would be fair to both sides? And this is for the context, Bussin' with the Boys, Delaney Walker Part 2. But Chase, what do you think there? Because right now he's scheduled to make in 23, I think it's 14.2 million for next year. That's what he's made this year. And he detailed this on Bussin' with the Boys that his injury, I guess his negotiation through his contract protected him from his salary being cut in half, which is the typical scenario for players that go on IR. And he's sitting there saying, I got the best agents in the world. Yeah, But so he's been paid 14 million this year to sit. But if you were to offer him, what would be your number or situation, if you will?
Yeah, you'd want to keep that right above half. And then if you want to keep it right above half, I wouldn't be if it all goes well. Let's say if the rehab does go well, I'd even give it up to 9 as get it up to 9, but I would make a shit ton of incentives, but also like you got to play this much, there has to be something in those clauses like we'll give you 9, but if you only play 3 games and you're gonna get 6, I don't know if you can do that. I guess you can't with this contract being you can't cut in half, but there has to be something along those lines. And I would really like for him to do something. Remember when Marcus signed with the Raiders and it was like all incentive packages, like you had to earn it because you're a good backup, but you have to earn it. That's what I want for Lawan. It's like, hey, you got to stay healthy and you've got to earn it, man. You've got to get to 3rd team all league. It's something. You got to get your ass back into it or it's going to just not work. So I don't know. What was your number?
I think in that neighborhood. I want to throw Craig Story his comment on Facebook: 8.5 million with incentives. He's also said 7.5 max, no chance at 9 million. Gavin saying 8 million if he stays healthy. Also said 6 million for Lawan. I would go in that same ballpark of probably 8 million fully guaranteed, but then have incentives where he could climb his way back into that. If, like you're saying, if he's Pro Bowl or if he's all pro or whatever it is, if they make the playoffs and he's played, above whatever his average has been in career or whatever, like that's where I would want somebody to be able to come in, Rand Carson, who's had the experience to be able to see other GMs like John Lynch in negotiations with Deebo Samuel. Like that probably wasn't like, there's a lot of rupture repair there. If you want to talk about some psychology, like, hey, that's where John Robinson went wrong. Like he said, you know what, screw it. You want that? You're not worth it. We're going to dig our heels in. And that's a losing mentality. But this is where I think you could honestly go to Lawan and say, look, man, we want you to retire a Titan. You have your family here, busting them with the boys is based out of here. All the context that we all know about. Like he is a representative of Nashville. Huge. I love it. His wife's involvement in the city and all that kind of stuff. They're beautiful girls, all that. It's awesome, an awesome story. But let's be realistic. You haven't played, and I think that's where he is. But that number's got to be fair. And I think the 8 million is enough to say, look, you've got controlled drop off or change from last year to this year. But they also have to be able to go in and say, you have a growing podcast that we know that you're making money off of.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to know what they're making on merch.
Oh,
I
have no idea, but if I were to guess, I think they've got it negotiated with Barstool at some, percentages and things like that. But
they're killing it.
If it's just Will and it's the 4 crew and Jack, those guys like JP and all them, it's like, dude, congratulations. And that's where I don't know.
Straight cash, homie.
We were talking with Rainey last night, just saying like a lot of these podcasts are like independent musicians now. Like they are bringing in revenue because there's not this middleman of business or music business or whatever. People taking their hands everywhere. So, I mean, Lawan's set up.
Yeah.
But if he gets the itch, maybe he's like, no, I can get, he can go full Logan Ryan and go get $10 million somewhere else and fizzle out on a bad team.
And that's another part of it is this new GM is going to play a huge role. Like, are you going to bring back somebody? Because he's not going to have any relation unless it's Gowden. It's like he has no relation. Taylor won. He doesn't care. He's not going to care. He's going to bring. You are clearly on a timeline with Amy Adams Strunk right now.
Mm-hmm. You
are clearly on a get it together or you're out kind of timeline.
Yeah.
We want to win. We want to win pretty dang soon. So if that's the case, if you're going full rebuild, you probably don't want him back unless you can get him at some crazy easy price, Yeah. But if he wants to go somewhere, there's going to be some team out there. It's a mercenary league for the last couple of years. I mean, look at it. It's just like, yes, you can look at the Eagles right now. Like, yeah, they built up, but they went out and got AJ Brown. They made big signings. They got all these defensive tackles. Like, it feels like a mercenary league. Your last 2 NFL champions with the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Rams had these like huge, crazy years of like, let's just get everybody on one team.
Yeah.
And that's the route somebody's going to go next year. And Lawan might be a part of that for a decent price.
See, if I were to cut bait on other players like Tannehill and Henry, I would keep Lawan because look at the like asteroid, like just indention that has been left with Dennis Daly over there.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's bad. And I don't want to like, shame him as a professional, but the dude, like he's just on skates at times. But all that to say, like, Lawan is been here for 9 years. Obviously, he's had injuries, but you can't just, and this is what he said in the podcast as well, is like, you just don't find those guys on the street.
No.
Or draft the guy to be, I mean, unless it's Tristan Warps or whatever his name is in Tampa Bay. Like, he's a freak.
Yeah, but it's you get, it's 1 and 9 or 8 now, I guess. But there's like, it feels like there's 6 to 8 tackles drafted in the first round most years. But
yeah. Well, go on, Chase. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I was just thinking too, and Steven put down here, I think Vrabel helps him stay in Tennessee. That's a good point because I think Vrabel would want to keep somebody from the culture. Like he needs that. That's been the best thing about this whole Titans thing is like, how good are they in that locker room as far as like, hey, we know we're not the most talented teams. We have to believe we can win every freaking game.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping that culture is going to be something, even if it's just Lawan or even if it's just David Long. Like we clearly know his personality now,
Yeah.
That's why Delaney stuck around, I feel like, forever because he was the culture guy. I think you're right, too, and I think Taylor wants to be here long term. With everything, his life is here now.
It makes sense for him. I mean,
yeah,
logistically, realistically, and all that stuff. I mean, what were you just saying as far as the culture? I mean, I feel like the mindset right now is everyone is very aware of the situation, which Tannehill talked about today at the presser, of just saying like we see it, like we get it, and we're trying to just execute and be better. And obviously, winning will fix everything. But it's just a matter of if you can get across that line, and which that's where, I mean, not to get on this whole rant as far as Todd Downing, because he's not going to fire him, which he said.
Not to get on this rant, but your back's going. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, all that to say, no, I just don't think you blow it up right now at this point in the season because you have, I mean, the Chargers, who knows what you're going to get? Because I think Craig had a comment earlier in the chat as far as it would be so Titans if they go up and just, beat the crap out of the Chargers. Now, historically speaking, the Titans are not great on the West Coast, but that is one of those things that, the Vrabel era could write in that sense. But, it's going to be a lot for me. But, I mean, what are your thoughts coming in as far as the Chargers? I believe this is right, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but Joey Bosa is looking at coming off IR, and so is Derwin James, which would be big additions. I mean, especially with, God bless, Dennis Daly on Joey Bosa. Like, God almighty, that would be awful.
That whole front line's pretty dang good, man.
He's like, hold on here.
Man, like that's another part is if Derwin James does come back, that adds such an aspect to that team. I'm really, really, really worried about our secondary next week, man.
Cooked.
Mike Williams came back. Dude, I'm watching Keenan Allen healthy is just the guy just gets open all the time. Josh Palmer's made himself a shit ton of money. They're going to be really tough to stop, and we all know what Eckler is. If you played anybody in fantasy or if you've had him in your fantasy league, you know Eckler is just a stud. He may not be a 100-yard rusher every week, but he gets his yards some way, somehow. He's so tough to tackle because he's so quick and very tough. And Herbert looks so good. He looks so good. I mean, I know that team is also a little bit reeling. They should not. I mean, their injuries have caused them to be 6-6, but or I guess now 7-6, whatever. But they are a team that's underperforming as well. So there's a part of that. When you look at it from a coaching standpoint, they shoot themselves in the foot a lot too. And it doesn't help that they're in a very tough division, but they can mess up. So there is also that freaking Titans way to be just, I bet 85% of the money is going to be on LA.
Well, that's -3.5 or -3 right now for the Chargers.
I'm gonna go check DraftKings real quick. Let's just see what the money, like the percentage is just now. I don't know if it'll be high yet.
Yeah, they're -155 as far as money line for Chargers, and then the over/under is 47.5. So
47. Dang.
I can't. Well, the last time the Titans went to SoFi, I mean, if we're talking about the Rams on Monday Night Football, this is a 425 game. they kicked it in that night. They kicked some teeth in that night, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. But I mean, I agree. Like I know. Let's see. As far as the 11th, Bosa is still on the injured reserve. Trying to see, Burks is still in concussion protocol. Robert Woods is questionable as far as today. Tannehill was questionable today.
No percentages out yet, so I can't tell you
Gotcha.
where the money's gone yet. But
Gotcha.
we'll know. We'll know. Check that on Sunday. Check that out and be like, all right, what percentage of the money is on LA? And if it's like 90%, I would bet Tennessee over and over again because it's just a huge tell.
Yeah, dude. Well, I think we've gotten through our questions here. So, Chase, my man, if you're ready, we're going to be introducing a couple new segments tonight. So if you're new to us, welcome in. This is going to be a fun part of the show, but check it out.
Welcome to Headlines, where these two doofuses try to predict the upcoming week's headlines, and we invite you to do the same.
That's it, baby. Headlines is our segment where we're sitting and we're trying to predict what is going to happen. Maybe next week, maybe long term. We could really do whatever we want. So if you're in the chat, make sure and hit us up with your predictions. Maybe it's a Titans thing. Maybe it's a Vols thing. But Chase, I'm going to set you up here, brother. How do you see this thing going, and what are the headlines saying next week? What are the tweets saying?
Okay, so I actually have one that's going to be a little off the cuff here. This is for Mr. Daniel Forte. The French on the pitch make one American rich. And Mr. Daniel Forte is the man that has one game left in his $26 parlay to win $557,000.
Okay.
He picked out the NHL champion, the college football champion.
No way.
And he picked the NFL champion. And those four others. And he picked the French to win FIFA. And if they do that and they are one win away, he wins $557,000. So here's to Daniel Forte.
I wonder how much of that money he would actually see. The percentages of tax cuts and
Yeah, I think it's usually 45% gets taxed or something crazy like that on stuff like that. So I think it's something that's really high like that. I think it's something crazy.
I dig it, man. I want to throw this out here. Gavin Jones has got his headline. Odell is the redheaded stepchild, realizes nobody wants him anymore. I don't know if that will be headlines, but it will be a prediction for the sake of his injury. I think he's, he wants it. He wants to sit on a roster for 4 weeks, he said, and then obviously be ready for the playoffs, which I don't know if that
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Your knee's super healthy if that's the case.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this for my prediction. Next week, we're going to see headlines reading that the Titans have Danico Autry coming back. They've also got Treylon Burks coming back. And we're going to see, as far as a prediction, not just a headline, we're going to see this Titans team start getting it into gear late in the season. Because as Aaron Rodgers said, and I don't think we can get too far away from this. This was week 1 or week 2 on the Pat McAfee show. People were freaking out. We got our asses kicked by the Bills. And he said, is Mike Vrabel still there? Okay. Then shut the bleep up or whatever he said. I get it. Injuries, and that's where I keep my whole red last thread of hope for this team is guys coming back from injury. So if we can get that rolling, if guys can get it going too, that'd be my prediction for my headline of next week. Craig Story from Facebook.
Oh, you are such a Scrooge, Craig. You're such a Scrooge. This is the holiday season, bro. We want Daniel Forte to win this money.
We got some
Messi's legacy.
Anti-Forte people in here. Craig Story. The headline: Messi wins World Cup. ruins one guy's
Only you would make this comment, Craig. Only you.
I love it. I love some Craig Story on a good Wednesday night. But that's
love you, buddy.
I got I got to give it to Craig on that one. That was pretty good. Pretty good. Oh man. I don't know if we want to do more headline predictions maybe in the future, but obviously that's something that this is going to be an ongoing thing. So keep an eye out. We'll advertise this as our thumbnails on YouTube. You'll see it for headlines, but we're also going to do a little hit and a little miss.
Welcome to Hit or Miss, where we tell you what we liked and did not like from this last week in sports. Hit me with some of that or miss me with some of that.
All right, let me start us off. Hit or miss here. We're going to tell you, so hit me with some of that or miss me with some of that. And I'm going to go ahead and start off the top here.
Okay.
Gavin Jones coming out on Facebook saying, Trey, I will commend you. You haven't mentioned the Jags one time tonight. Miss me with that, Gavin. Listen, this team, the Jaguars, from the beginning of the year, Gavin's firing back. Miss me with you, Jags fandom, Trey. The Jags, I am not going to be surprised, right? This would also be a good headline. Jags leading and are closing in on the AFC South. And it's,
Oh, Lord.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm not going to try and double down on my bet here and say they're going to do it. I'm not going to be shocked because, again, if the Titans cannot come back, correct story. Can we talk about green bean casserole instead? I mean, is that allowed? Or?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, well, we'll move on from that. So maybe, hey, miss me with some of that, Chase said, as far as green bean casserole.
Pass.
But what are you trying to get hit or what are you trying to miss to start yours off, Chase?
Hit or miss. The transfer portal madness in college football. It's fun, but I think it's a big miss. I just feel like it's only going to get worse. It's fun now, but I'm already exhausted just watching this.
Miss you.
Everybody is in the freaking portal.
I saw a comic, right? I don't, for the kids watching at home, in case you don't know what comics are, they are not actually like Marvel comics. In the newspapers, they used to have jokes and things like that.
Yes.
But there was a quarterback room or whatever. They were on the field practicing, 3 quarterbacks on the team, and the third guy out, one was the first ranked depth chart, second, third. The third guy goes to the transfer portal, and he goes from being, 3 out of 3 to 3 out of 3,003 or whatever it is, right? Because there's so many people in the damn portal. And how do you feel about it? I mean, are you for it in the sense of like having opportunities? And I was talking to a coworker of mine. Can they now transfer as many times as they want, or was it capped at 1?
It is now capped at 1.
Okay.
You had the option before. It's kind of been free reign for a while, but now you're getting the chance to go. They're going to have basically 2, they have the recruiting period. Like you're going to have periods now of when you can transfer and make your moves and whatnot, just like they do in recruiting. Like you're going to have a signing day, you're going to have a period now. So it is going to be just brutal because now, wow, I'm just totally blanking on his name. The quarterback from Coastal Carolina, he's transferring. So now you're going to have him. He's your number 1 quarterback in the portal. He's somebody that's definitely proven himself. I mean, Coastal's been great, but it's going to be a competition between them and whomever. Cade McNamara goes to Iowa, which, God, you can't make that offense any worse. So good for Cade. But there's just going to be so much parity in college football now. It's going to be great. But we're going to have to start getting used to 2-loss teams because the portal is going to have – you're going to have some guys that are going to be, 4th or 5th years now that I guess we'll be kind of funneling away from – well, no, I guess we won't. We'll have 6-year guys for quite some time now.
So you're saying that we'll have more 2-loss teams in the sense that you're going to have more competitive –
Yeah, you're going to have a lot more competitive stuff in these weird in these conferences, especially when they get bigger.
See, that's why I'm kind of for it. I like the idea of not just the players being able to man, I don't like this situation I'm going to run. It's like the teams have the pick of the litter now.
Yeah.
And the rich don't just get richer. That's where I feel like the free agent market helps, immediate teams go to high end or whatever, moderate teams go to the next level. But all that to say, it's like, if kids want to leave, go for it, but you're risking a lot now.
You are. And especially now, saw a stat the other day that said 43.7% of Power 5 transfers either A, move down to FCS, JUCO, or don't make it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about guys that they're not laterally transferring. You're usually taking a notch down if you are not one of the top tier guys. Like there's only so many scholarships, and you've missed the early recruiting period. So like you're in the second wave of people they can bring in. You're not the first wave of free agency, right?
Yeah.
And supposedly it sounds like, I don't know what the guy's name was, but Ohio State said they got outbid NIL deals. Like this is going to be madness.
By $1 million, right? What's that's the number?
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's gonna be like once it kind of gets settled and there like becomes like a better framework. I think I'm gonna love it. I am a sucker for NBA free agency.
Mm-hmm.
I love when Tennessee gets these transfers.
Yeah.
But right now I'm like sitting here watching Pate before this pod, and I'm like, you're just freaking out. You're like, there's so many people in this portal, and there's like 1,000 people coming in recruiting, and it's just, I don't know, man. It's going to be a lot of fun once you kind of like get the structure down and you see all these new faces, but it's going to be.
I think it's. Sorry to cut you off. I do think it is better for college football in general, because I think a lot of fans. I mean, I hear Alabama fans. Honestly, it's like, dude, it just gets old sometimes. Like beating teams 62-15 or whatever, and this really does make the field more competitive in the sense of just talent being able to pick where they would want, but also teams being able to go out and say, hey, we like Tennessee right now, lighting this shit on fire as far as filling up some defensive issues and holes and all that kind of thing. But it is, that's where I feel again like Vanderbilt is coming out of the sewers now. And that's one of those things that we're going to keep an eye on, I'm sure, in the future, because I don't know if it's a Clark Lee thing or just the NIL stuff of like you have more available talent that, hey, if I want to go to Vanderbilt, get a great education there and play football in the meantime, like, and
it's always going to be tough for Vandy, but they're clearly bumping back some restrictions in their schooling. Yeah. So there's a sleeping, not a giant. We're not looking at the Troll movie. Shout out to Netflix, #1 Norwegian movie, but you're definitely getting some.
I don't know which trolls you're talking about because my kids love, the
troll doll, the troll dolls. No, there's a new Norwegian film that's #1 on Netflix called Troll.
Is it a horror movie?
Not so much horror, just like your typical like Godzilla type movie.
Gotcha.
But troll wise, it's not bad, not a bad dub over. Yeah. The Scandinavian people, good looking folks. Anyways, yeah. So if you need something like really weird to watch, there you go. You're welcome. But with those transfers coming in, I'm with you. There's the powerhouses are not gonna. I mean, your Alabama's, Texas A&M's gonna have a huge recruiting class, but when some of those guys aren't playing that are super talented, they're just behind an ungodly talented man. They're gonna be moving on. You come in the same. If you're you're a 5-star and a 4-star linebacker, and your 5-star is not quite as good as your 4-star, but he's like, I got all kinds of talent. I can go wherever I want. I've still got a name behind me. He gone. So now your depth starts getting chipped away at. So that's where it's going to become interesting in the fact of the parity for college football.
I know Craig said here, if the portal is going to be like this, then signing day needs to be moved back to February. I wish they would have never had the two, different ones. But this seems like it's all kind of ramping up for when this 12-team playoff hits in college.
It's kind of perfect, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like the crescendo of the goodness, and now that's where I feel like if the field is more competitive, then you're going to have 12 teams. It's not going to be just blowout, and then 3 maybe good games, where it's like actually competitive. But I mean, it's interesting topic for our hit or miss here as far as the transfer portal, which I mean, I'm all about it. I mean, hit me with some of that as far as the transfer portal, just for the sake of the field being more competitive. But you are on the other side of saying miss me with the sake of just people just ditching it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's madness right now.
Madness. Chaos is a ladder, as the great Peter Baelish did say, man.
Shout out to Peter.
Peter Baelish. I will say this too. I want to I know we're going to close it out here in just a second. I want to acknowledge a couple things today of just the idea of miss me with this. I hate seeing this stuff in the news. Obviously, the passing of Mike Leach, and just an incredible coach. I mean, hilarious personality. I know right now it's going around where he said, hey, when people are when you've passed and they're writing the obituary, he's like, I don't care. I'll be dead. It's there.
Yeah.
It's just like classic Mike Leach. But also today, the news of Twitch, who is the producer and DJ on the Ellen DeGeneres show, taking his life. And I just want to kind of take a second for that of just like, I hate seeing that stuff and death in general. But I want to use our platform and just saying, if anybody out there should hear this, watch this, see this, or anything like that, and you need help, feel free to reach out to us at any point. Like, we're not professionals, but we can help bridge a gap and help, you know, in a time where it's like, even sometimes a complete stranger who doesn't know you, who cannot judge you, and just be able to say, dude, I need an ear right now. I need some help. Like, that's where I think so many people get so just narrow, you know, minded in the stress of life and all that, but not to be crazy long-winded. But
No.
as it hit today, a lot of people were posting about it. So I'm sure a lot of eyes have seen that news, but hate seeing that. And yeah, if you need anything out there, again, please feel free to hit us up. But man, sorry to take it down that route, but just wanted to make mention of it. But
no. And, you know, to touch on Leach, like, he's another person that no matter what your status is, keep your personality, be great. Like, he's just the type of person that was the best part, was hearing all the stories you heard from people that actually met him or knew him. And, you know, all these cool stories about, you know, he just took the time to hang around me, man. He just took the time to chat with me. You know, small reporters just be like, hey, I have one Mike Leach story. And he was there with me for 25 minutes in a room. We just talked about whatever. He's the hardest person to leave. He's just a guy. And that's a perfect way to put it, Gavin, in the comments here. Leach left the world a better place than he found it.
yeah.
And he is the type of person that he never changed. Everybody said from Savannah State or Valdosta State to Washington State to Mississippi State, you know, he made it better, and he gave us some ungodly good college football games. That, like I mentioned in my tweet right after, like, that Texas and Texas Tech game was the top 3 best college football games I've ever watched in my life.
Was that the Crabtree? That was the Michael Crabtree.
That was a Crabtree catch at the last second. And it was awesome, dude, because we were all like, Michael Crabtree is the man.
Yeah.
And he was awesome in college and he's an all right guy in the NFL. Yeah. Like, that was so much fun. Like, those guys, those are like memories you're going to last forever. And that team was awesome. But yeah, he's got the personality that never changed, and he's always going to be him. You'll always remember those great comments. So yeah, do great with what you can.
2 of my favorite stories from Michael Leach. I heard, I think Bleacher Report put it out that there was a player on the team at some point in Mike Leach's coaching career. He set the guy down and just said, hey, dude, you're not going to make it. I would advise you, and I'm going to offer you a job to be an assistant and coach. And the guy stormed out. And he was pissed off, and he came back later and accepted the job. And that was Lincoln Riley, which I'm like, you just don't know who the coaching tree extends to. And it's just incredible to see. But I think it was Clay Travis put out where he, or maybe it was Trey Wallace. I'm not sure which one of the two, but they said, I don't know who it was actually. I'm sorry. I'm maybe speaking completely wrong, but basically saying that they had scheduled an interview with Mike. No, it was Austin Stanley. I'm sorry, but he called into their radio station at the time from Key West on a bike just to talk. Like the most Mike Leach thing ever. Like, hey guys, how you doing? You know, his whole demeanor and everything. But yeah, man, incredible person, incredible personality, and like you said, like just always a reminder to be yourself and have fun with it. But yeah, man, great show. Obviously, and just to close this thing out, in case you're new to us, check us out at chat10.com. Obviously, if you listen, if you're on YouTube, this little guy right here, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications, thumbs up all the content, and help us grow there. These guys right here, in case I'm on the wrong side, channel is in our corner there. So make sure and check them out on Twitter. You can obviously follow them and interact, but they've got their podcast live on Mondays, and then they'll be on their feed as well. But all that to say, great episode. Chase, what you got going on? Anything worth mentioning?
We will be doing a Twitter Spaces, probably halftime and post game of the Tennessee Vols basketball. It's gonna be a late one, so if you guys are up with us, come hang. It'll probably be me, Rainey, and Austin. Maybe Trey might come on in, you know. But you know, when he's a dad at 3, it's tough. He don't stay up late on Saturdays much. So
well, we got hit with the flu, dude.
Oh, tough run.
So we're still coming out of it today. One of the 3, the last of the third, has a low grade fever that's kind of coming down. So we've been medicated and we've been quarantined as well. But all that to say, yeah, check the Twitter space out Saturday. Keep an eye on that. Make sure Twitter, Chat 10 Sports is our handle there as well. Obviously, MC Green 423 and me at Trey Wynn. If you are free, I'm telling you, the spaces are fun. It gives us the ability to have you come in and speak and ask questions or have a little conversation and then jump out for others to do the same. But, man, a lot of fun, so keep an eye out there. And then a lot of things happening with the Tennessee basketball as far as what I see.
This is a monster game on Saturday in Arizona. So, top 10 matchup, baby.
All right, yo, I'm going to close this thing out. We appreciate you joining us live and appreciate you listening. We hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time. Adios.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chat 10 Sports, where we're talking all things Tennessee sports and everything